The Final Destination series emerged from a time in horror, and this is the late 90s, early 2000s, where to get the butts in seats, to attract audiences, what they're doing, they're like bringing in the trendy teen stars to the movie, like with Scream, Neve Campbell, I know you did last summer, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Jennifer Love Hewitt, all that. The first Final Destination film, which I'll be talking about today, is no exception to that, though it does offer something a little bit different. I mean, yes, it does have the trendy stars that pretty much only like teenagers would want to go see, like Devon Sawa in the lead role, and Sean William Scott, and Ali Larter, Schwing. It has all that, but it does offer something a little bit different, I would say. And essentially what it does, and what I find clever about the first movie, and these movies as a whole, is that it cuts out the middleman, where we, instead of, say, having a deranged killer knocking off these kids one by one, it's actually death itself which is getting the kids, which I think it kind of brings it down to the brass tacks of all these kinds of things, because when you think about these types of movies, whether they be from this era or from earlier, the Friday the 13th series, Nightmare on Elm Street series, what have you, it's all really about this specific kind of generation, and why we see, for the most part, teenagers as the main protagonists of these horror movies, where it is this kind of age where you do feel immortal. Like, you feel like nothing can kill you. You have your whole life ahead of you, which is actually a line even uttered at the beginning of this film. So that's really what it's all about. It's about these kids finally confronting their own mortality, and finally realizing that, yes, we can die. And in horrific ways, in this movie, Final Destination certainly shows some horrifying things. I mean, it has, of course, the infamous opening scene with the plane crash, and really what they kind of tune into the formula is that there's a big disaster at the beginning of these movies. There's a character who has a premonition that something awful is going to happen. They get away from it, maybe bring a group of friends or other people with them, and realize that they've cheated death, and death isn't happy about it, and they're gonna come back and get killed by death in ways that look like accidents, and that's pretty much it. I have to say, this first movie, while it does establish the formula, and it has some really great things to it, I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the Final Destination movies, actually. And what's probably the most frustrating about it is that this could have been like a really, really great movie, like even kind of like a deeper kind of movie about exploring those themes, about youth finally confronting death and being angry with the prospect of death and things like that. But in taking this horrific element, not of a crazy serial killer, but as a terrible plane crash, I think it really speaks to a lot of fears in that sense, which I think is really, really good. Like, not just the event of the crash itself. It's an intense scene. It's quick, but it's the build up to it that's really engaging, and you kind of see the Devon Sawa character. He's picking up these little hints. He's hearing John Denver on the radio in the bathroom, and his classmate drops a book. He picks it up, and the page that it happens to be on is the Princess Diana crash. And there's just all these little things that kind of make him think that something's a little bit off. Maybe I shouldn't get on that plane. Something terrible is going to happen. Then, yes, he does have the premonition. Gets into a huge panic and brawl, and brings some other classmates out with them. And then guess what? The plane really does crash. And it's quite scary. I mean, it's not like a general horror kind of scary concept per se, but it's a scary thing. I mean, that scares people. I mean, really, a plane crash. I'm terribly afraid of flying myself, so that scene was a very intense for me personally. So, I applaud it for that, and just the way they built up to it, and the way they really made such an intense scene out of it. And I'd say the first act of the movie is excellent. I mean, we have the initial disaster, and we have characters who, in kind of like a legitimate, dramatic way, they're like dealing with survival's guilt quite a bit. And at the center of it all, they're looking to this kid, Devon Sawa, and they're like, how did he know about this? What is going on? So that I think that was all done really well. When we get into the next act of the movie, that's when things get a little bit silly. So I mean, it's not too bad, but it's the first in the series of what maybe they didn't anticipate to be a series at the time, so they kind of have to explain it a little bit in detail. Then they kind of like whittle the explanation down with each movie. Like with this one, it's like a really drawn out kind of figuring things out and making schematics and things like that. And like by the time we get to like the fifth movie, it's like, oh yeah, those kids on that plane crash, they were cheating death, so we can cheat death too. 2 seconds of dialogue, and that's it. So this one, it has to establish it a little bit more. And I would say there are some cheats to the writing. To be fair, like we have a pretty nice scene with Tony Todd, who plays this coroner who seems to know everything and is very creepy, but like how he knows anything, I don't know, and why he's there, I don't know, and does he show up again? Nope. And that's pretty much it. So he's just there to bring that explanation and exposition, and then they can move on with the rest of the plot. And to one degree or another, I mean, we've definitely seen these terrible accidents that befall the survivors done a lot better in the sequels. Like when we first see the first death that occurs, the one friend character, we see this kind of cheesy CGI water seep out of like the toilet, and then he slips into the shower, and there's the line there, and he chokes to death, and it's kind of silly. And so I would say, in addition to all that, the biggest problem in the movie is maybe the tone of it, because with that first, say, third of the movie, it's taking itself pretty seriously, but then we have all these wacky things. The teacher, she like has the bottle with the leak in it and makes her computer explode, and the whole house goes on fire, and then the knives fall on her and all that stuff. And one girl's like, "You guys can drop dead." Boom! Bus hits her, and it's kind of funny. But after that first act, we're like, "Well, is this really that funny, or is this kind of serious?" And it's kind of a weird blend of the two, which I don't think is as good as it could have been one way or another. You know what I mean? Like it could have been more of a wacky kind of stupid thing, and it could have been a more serious thing. And part of me, every time I watch this, like I watched it a couple of years apart. I mean, I always have I'd say I have a better memory of the movie than I have actually watching the movie. But watching them again, I'm really kind of getting into it. I'm like, yeah, this is actually a really good movie. Then it just kind of, I don't know, loses steam a little bit. But I do like the movie. I do. And I think, it establishes the rules of this horror universe, and, in cutting out the middleman kind of thing. I think that is an interesting concept, and in that if death is cheated, it begins to have a vendetta. And I think that's a scary thought. You can't escape death if it wants you, which is scary. And, it deals with it in ways that are very real, like with a plane crash or a car crash, or accidents in the tanning salon, or laser eye surgery, or all the other crazy horse shit they put in these sequels. But I'd say as the sequels went along, I'd say they embraced the sillier side more, which I think is the right thing to do. And so they established it well here, and it's a fine movie, and it has some good parts to it. I really liked Sean William Scott character playing Hitchcock. So all the characters are also named after famous horror directors as well. Kind of a nice little Easter egg, if you want to call it that. So first, Final Destination. I think it's a good movie, though the most disappointing thing is that it could have been great. It could have been an absolute horror classic that kind of delved a little bit deeper. Not that I want it to be this searing, over-the-top drama or anything like that, but it could have explored things a little bit more. But it kind of gets bogged down to its plot and its rules, which are fine, but they become almost a side note in the next movies, which is fair enough, I'd say. So not my favorite of the series, but it's a series I enjoy quite a bit, actually, and I'm glad, they've been still making them up to a couple of years ago, so I hope we see a Final Destination 6 quite soon. But that's my review of Final Destination, the first one. Stay tuned, I'll be talking about Final Destination 2. Until next time, be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Dare237.com. And until next time, I'll see you later, and stay scared.